Joining us right now is Representative Frank Wolf of Virginia. Representative Wolf, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Well, we know the president has decided to seek congressional approval. You're going to be coming back into town if you're not already in town today.
I haven't left town. I've been in town.
All right. And, I guess it's an easy commute for you, Congressman Wolf. I guess the first question here that keeps popping up in my head is the president's case for going to war, or at least a military strike against Syria. Is it based on the use of chemical weapons, or is it based on the fact that he drew a red line a year ago about those chemical weapons?
I think it's based on both. But it's still unclear because you're not sure when they come up in brief whether it's one at the same time or both at the same time. Mm-hmm. But I think, in fairness, the administration is basically emphasizing the use of chemical weapons. And I think they make a legitimate argument. I mean, if there are chemical weapons used, I think that is a very serious issue. I think the concern that I have, that what are the ramifications of doing this? What will be downstream? Will there be asymmetrical attacks? Will this embolden the Al-Qaeda people that are in the region? I was in the region in February. We went down into the Bekaa Valley and met with a lot of Syrians who had left. We also had a group of Syrians who came out from Damascus to meet with. They told me stories of the Al-Qaeda, Afghans, Yemeni jihadists all over the place. Brutal attacks against the Christian community. What will that mean? So I don't think there's been an answer that if you do strike, and the strike they're talking about is basically a pinprick. It isn't a strike to destroy the Assad administration, to bring down the government, to change the dynamics. It is almost a kind of a form of punishment back, is what you said earlier.
All right.
They crossed the red line. What are the ramifications of it? That's why yesterday I asked the administration to put together what I call a Syrian advisor group made up of people like Jim Baker, who was Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, but also Ryan Crocker. Ryan Crocker was our ambassador out in the region for years. Former Ambassador Derigian, who was out there for years, was also an ambassador in Israel. What do they think, and what does General Zinni think? What do some of these people think about, okay, you do it. What are the ramifications after you do it, both in Syria and around the world?
Well, I think you are sort of treading into areas that the president has had to consider in the days before now, and he but I guess the thing I come back to is, I hear what you're saying, and you got an idea, and there are 534 other members of Congress who also have their own idea. And at the end of the day, is this any way to conduct foreign policy on a matter of this import?
Well, I think it is. I think the Constitution requires the Congress to be involved. I think the Congress has given up too much authority. So I don't think we can criticize the administration for coming to Congress. I think they basically did the right thing. But there are so many questions. You know, we remember Iraq. We remember the comment, slam dunk. Remember George Tenet said,
right.
FBI, slam dunk. You remember Colin Powell, who's a good man, testifying before the UN, saying clearly there were chemical weapons. We now see Afghanistan falling apart. We see Iraq falling apart. What are the ramifications of doing this? Is this the best way to do it? They say their goal is to bring Assad to Geneva, to the table, so we can remove. Is this the best way to bring them to the table? So I think there are a lot of questions that have not been answered.
How are you leaning?
Right now, if the vote were today, I would vote no.
Representative Frank Wolf is our guest of Virginia. And Representative Wolf, you talk about the ramifications if we do engage in a military strike with Syria. Your colleague across the building there, Senator John McCain, he talks about the ramifications if we don't. He said that if Congress didn't authorize a military action, it would be catastrophic. In fact, he and his colleague Lindsey Graham, they think we need to do more than just the pinprick, as you suggested. Are these two sides of this argument ever going to be able to reach a resolution?
Well, we'll have to see. I have great respect for Senator McCain. He's a war hero. You can argue that if you are going to strike, it ought to be much more aggressive than just a pinprick. But, you know, I think each member has to look at every aspect. We look to see Syria. Then we had Benghazi. That didn't work out very, very well. We had Egypt, where the administration supported the Muslim Brotherhood. And we see that didn't work out very, very well. We have seen in the past there were these pinpricks, and the ramifications later are very, very serious. So I think you have to bring together a team like Ryan Crocker, like Jim Baker, like Madeleine Albright, to advise and tell us, are there other ways to deal with this, in addition to, if that's the case, but are there other ways? Because if the purpose is to move Assad, how do we do it diplomatically, get him to the table, convince the Russians to participate, whereby we can remove Assad? But, there's a saying out in the Middle East, first the Saudi people and then the Sunni people. The Jewish population has been decimated. There used to be, the Jewish population of Egypt was 80,000 in the 50s. They're down to 20. The Jewish population of Iraq was 180,000. They're now down to 1. They're doing the same thing to the Christian community. What is the impact on the Christian community in Syria? We've seen what's taken place to the Christian community in
Egypt,
right?
Yeah.
In Iraq before the war began, there were 1.5 million, and now they're down to 350,000.
Mm-hmm.
And in Egypt, we see the Coptic Christians. I was in Egypt in February. They live in fear. So first the Saudi people and then the Sunni people. Do we want to see the Middle East emptied of Christians? It's totally emptied of Christians. And when I met with these people, they were both Christian, they were Sunni, they were Alawite. The stories that they told, there was a prison break in Afghanistan about a month ago. Many of them who broke out have gone to Syria. There was a major prison break in Iraq. Many of them who have gotten out have gone to Syria. And there was a major prison break in Benghazi 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
1,000 broke out, and they have gone to Syria. So what does this mean? Does this mean that we do this? Can the rebels who are fighting, will they be in control, or will the jihadists get the chemical weapons? I think there are a lot of questions. And I'm not prepared. Yeah. I'm not criticizing the administration. It's a very tough choice. Each member is going to have, but there are a lot of questions we have to answer before we make a decision.
Very quickly, because our time is almost gone. If Congress says no, well, we've already heard from the Secretary of State that the president retains the right to go ahead anyway. If he takes action after Congress has said no, what will be the reaction?
I don't know what the reaction is, but that's my indications at the briefings, and I don't want to get in. The indications are that they still reserve the right to move, and my sense is that if the Congress says no, they will still move ahead.
Wow. That's interesting. Well, Congressman Frank Wolf, thank you for joining us. Greatly appreciate it.
Always great to have you, and check back in as you hear more information on this, Congressman Wolf.
Okay, thanks so much.